Good evening. Good evening. We're delighted to have you all here. If there's an empty seat, can you guys move to the center or raise your hand or anything because people are still coming in? And I'm sure the balcony people are going to love this, right? We're good. Thank you. So we want to make sure everybody's comfortable and the fire marshal doesn't come after us.
All right, welcome everybody, and thanks for being here. We'll have some time to introduce myself and Miss Murphy later, but just to get us started tonight, I wanted to quickly look over the agenda. So, Mr. Miller will start, our school's dean, and Mr. Ruddell will follow that with some information from the personal counseling office, and then Miss Murphy and I will take us home. And so, but before we get started, we're lucky enough here to have Father Ralph Metz, and he agreed to share a prayer with us that I think is timely given the event tonight. So thank you, Father Metz.
Good evening to everybody. Let us place ourselves in the Lord's presence for a moment. Maybe just do a little breathe in and a little breathe out as we come into the Lord's presence and call on his name in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Prayer this evening is called Trust in the Slow Work of God. Above all, trust in the slow work of God. We are quite naturally impatient in everything to reach the end without delay. We should like to skip the intermediate stages. We're impatient on being on our way to something unknown, something new. And yet it is the law of all progress that is made by passing through some stages of instability, and that it may take a very long time. And so I think it is with you. Your ideas mature gradually, let them grow. Let them shape themselves without haste. Do not try to force them on as though you could be today what time, that is to say, grace and circumstances acting on your own goodwill, will make of you tomorrow. Only God could say what this new spirit gradually forming within you will be. Give our Lord the benefit of believing that his hand is leading you, and accept the anxiety of feeling yourself in suspense and incomplete. And this is a prayer of Pierre de Chardin, a Jesuit who lived from 1881 to 1955. St. Robert Bellarmine, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. And I hope you have a great meeting.
Good evening, all. So I'm going to talk a little bit about e-cigarettes, pod-based vaping things. I do want to put out there right away as a disclaimer, total disclaimer, I'm not an expert on this at all. I've gone to a couple of workshops, a couple of talks. We got permission from the Tobacco Prevention Toolkit out of Stanford to use their slides. They made a great presentation on this, so there's no need for me to try to recreate the wheel. You can go there, you can look at what they have also. They've got tons of material on there in terms of vaping, cigarettes, nicotine, tobacco prevention on there. I would like to start then again also saying this is a very relevant topic for us right now and for our kids. It's in the news. It's been in the news consistently over the last couple of weeks, couple of months. Over 1,000 people that are in hospitals right now suffering with some form of something with vaping, to deal with vaping. As of last week, Thursday, I think it was like about 19 deaths that have occurred. So it might be higher by now because of the amount of people that are in there. As I've had the chance to talk to some of your sons about this, I just tell them that relevancy of how important or how much of an impact this is. And when it first came out, people didn't care. People were like, oh, it's something new to do, something different. We're starting to see very quickly the medical backlash that's coming into our bodies on this. Just go. So reinventing the cigarette, and this is what these companies did. So many of you are aware, hopefully, of what these things look like. So the one that's furthest away from me is the old school vape thing. Nice big item, sits in your hand. This one over here on this side is the Juul. It's the more modern one. Earlier last week in the news, they had all sorts of other devices. They've got a vaping device now that's a pen that actually writes with ink. They've got one that looks like an iWatch that kids can use, right? So it's about concealment and hiding. And if this was just like a cigarette or an alternative to a cigarette, why would they make these things in such a hidden type of a device? So some things about these. The Juul is a salt-based nicotine, which means it just gets into your body faster. The bigger one is a free-based nicotine, so it just heats up in a different way. The older system was 25 milligrams of nicotine. The Juul prided itself on, we can deliver a lot more into your body faster. 41.3 milligrams of nicotine. A gentleman that comes and speaks to our sophomores, so he spoke to your boys last year during their PE Health and Wellness unit, did explain to us Juul was a company that was based on not trying to make anybody kick nicotine, not trying to make anybody kick the habit of cigarettes, but they were a company that their whole focus was based on how do we infuse drugs into this? How can we use something to get marijuana into somebody's body faster or at a higher potency? And this is what they do. Pods are not made to be refilled, but like anything else in life, you can look it up on YouTube, and they can show you on YouTube how to refill a pod, which is dangerous when you look at the things. And the other old school one is a refillable tank, so it's the bigger bottles that are there that you just refill and pump into them and use over and over again. I've shared this slide in particular with our sophomores over the last couple weeks on there. So it's easy to think, right? There's 20 cigarettes in a pack. You smoke a pack of cigarettes, that's 20 cigarettes. A Juul pod, if you can complete the entire pod, and you think about the size of it, right? They're pretty tiny on there. It's almost 2 packs of cigarettes that they consume in terms of nicotine out of that device. And the other two systems that are there, it's not that they do anything else different, they just can contain more. Right? So 75 milligrams of nicotine, it's about 75 cigarettes, and then sarin is almost 90 cigarettes if they complete a whole pod. That's a lot of nicotine going into a body. Right? And so I've said, because I have family members that vape, and they used to tell me back in the beginning, oh, it's just water vapor, don't worry, and I would take my son and everybody away and go, yeah, go do that outside, because I don't know what's really in there. You can tell me it's water vapor. No, all pods contain high levels of nicotine, high levels of it. Right? And I've joked with the sophomore class, they've picked up on the joke and said, yeah, this stuff is killing people right now. Almost immediately killing people. And we don't know what it does. So our tobacco companies, because they're smart, they're going, hey, come back to us. Come back. We will kill you in 40 years, not in 5. Right? And it's a sad tactic that they're using. But again, that cigarette's not cool for kids, right? It's not where they're making their money. It's going again. Don't go again. Okay. There he goes. And again, the original claim was that it's water vapor, that it heats up vapor. We have learned that that is not true whatsoever on there. It's not water vapor. It suspends particles in there. So it's an aerosol and not really a vape. But they use the term vape because it's easier to say that and cooler to say that than to say I'm going to go buy an aerosol and get that into my body. And those of you that are out there that have a science background type thing with it, the aerosol will suspend the particles, and then that's what attaches into our bodies, where the vapor is really vapor, right? It doesn't do that. It just floats away type of a thing. So the aerosol is more dangerous, and they just don't want to use it that way. And again, they're not marketing to me. They're not marketing to an old guy like me. They're not marketing to you, all right? Our generation, if we started smoking cigarettes, they got us already, right? And we are just trying to break it or deal with that part. What are they doing now? They're making nice, cute little things, right, that attract kids. And when I've looked at this a couple of times, like the Stormtrooper one on the end, if you take the actual mouthpiece off, or if you leave it there, right, it looks like a bottle of cologne that could be sitting on a kid's dresser top. And then these down here, the Batman, Iron Man, and Hulk one, if you take that thing off, first quick glance could look like it's a cell phone, some kind of a cell phone cover type thing. Again, they're hiding these. Right? This doesn't look like a cigarette. This looks nice and cool, and it's bedazzled. So enough research is out, and enough from our lifetime is out. There's bad stuff in cigarettes, right? And then when you take them down, you take them to the lab, you pull all the stuff that's in there and chemicals, there's bad stuff in there. You can talk to almost any kid on campus and ask them, is there bad stuff? Yeah, there's bad stuff in cigarettes. And look at it, and there's commercials that we've grown up with that have attacked this and have attacked these things. But take a look at some of the chemicals that are up there, on there. Benzene, formaldehyde, good stuff. Valeric acid, I don't know, but it's acid. I wouldn't want to be taking that in my body. Silver, nickel, tin, barium, aluminum, right? Some really good stuff in there. Lead, awesome. These are things that we want to put into our bodies. And then the companies will tell us, well, the pods don't have this, and they don't have it. And so, again, from Stanford, they did that, and they said all the stuff from cigarettes is in there. All of it is in there, right? And it's dangerous. And then, again, I think it highlights some of them, some of the other ones that are in there that are bad. And the lady that's doing this is being sued by Juul. On it, because Juul is saying, no, that's not true, that stuff isn't in there. They went through and did a whole chemical research and a whole breakdown and found out all the particles, everything that's in there inside of a Juul case. They took one and did a chemical testing of it, and she found all of this in there. Compounds in orange are from FDA 2012, harmful and potentially harmful substances on the established list. Just bad stuff that's in there. They will market this to our kids. It's our job here as a school, and I'll talk about that in a second of what we do. You have the hardest job because kids are kids, and they're out there to push the limits, right, and to test things and to see what they can get away with. And that's what they're going to try, and that's what these companies are selling to them, right, in these ways. And they're selling to them in all these wonderful flavors that are out there. That masks the flavor for you, right? So you can't really tell. And you'll walk into your house and you'll smell something and you go, what is that? Oh, it's lotion I'm putting on my hands. Oh, it's just a new cream. Oh, it's the air freshener that's out there. And those are times to have those conversations with them because they make these products to mask and to hide that way. And again, they're really dangerous out there. Our response, so from the student handbook, vaping or any kind of nicotine or any kind of tobacco product is contrary to the mission of the school. Penalties can include dismissal from Bellarmine for use on campus, for use at an event, for them being under the influence. The same policy applies whether it's on or off campus, any school event, right? And I've told the kids, you're a bell today, you're a bell tomorrow, you're a bell always. You're a bell on the weekends, you're a bell in the summer. You are a bell all the time. And that they have to hold themselves to that ideal, right? On or off campus at all times, because we should just be better. In some cases, their continued enrollment in the school can be contingent upon them receiving regular testing, so that they're going to a clinic, going to an agency, and regularly testing to make sure that they're clean. We have the resources for that to be able to provide to you. And then there's also legal ramifications that they can face, right? So if it's not just vape juice that's in there, but there's THC or marijuana that's in there, it's a felony count. if it's THC that's in there, so that's bad. Right? They can face some legal ramifications to that. The bad stuff, right? But what do we really want here? Our office, the dean's office, and everyone that you're going to meet today and everyone that's on this campus, we're here to help. So we're not here to just lay down a hammer and just say, boom, we got you on that. We don't want your child to be addicted to these things at all. If you're having those conversations or you can express this to your son, tell them they should feel free to come in. And I've said to kids, if you walk into my office and you take 5 vape things out of your pocket and you throw them on the desk and you go, I'm trying to kick this. I can't get away from it. I'm not going to say, you're out of here. Right? We're going to say, what can we do to help you? Here are resources. Let's connect you and talk to your counselors. We're going to have to make the difficult call and talk to your parents about this, because if we don't do this as a team effort, it's not going to work. So we all will work together on it. We'll offer support. We'll offer avenues for counseling, for rehabilitation programs. We're here to help, and we keep saying that message over and over to kids this entire year, and I know it was something they said last year also. Our office is here to help. It's here to guide. It's here to help another portion of their formation here at Bellarmine. So that's my little bit on it. And with that, I'll introduce Mr. Ruddell.
Good evening. I believe I've seen many of you before. My name is Mr. Ruddell. I'm one of the personal counselors for the junior class here at Bellarmine. I am also, Mr. Vargas is not able to make it tonight, but he wanted me to say hello from him as well. I have a lot to say that I feel is very important, so I brought note cards. I hope you don't mind that I will be glancing at them while I talk. There's a lot of good information coming in just another couple minutes from the college counselors, but first I wanted to talk about some things that are, I believe, to be incredibly important, and so that they don't get lost in the shuffle. The starting point we can all agree on right now is that your son will be going to a good school after Bellarmine. That is something that we support him in, and that we help him chart the way to that school. But before he gets there, he is a student at Bellarmine, and he is a student in our care. In my work with your son as his personal counselor, I talked to him about a variety of topics, one of which being his college hopes and dreams. But I also talked to him about his academic struggles and successes, and I talked to him about many other experiences and some of the emotional struggles that he goes through as well. I have personal conversations with your sons, and I get to know their incredible personality. And so, in my book, your son will be a successful graduate of Bellarmine if he can walk out of here with at least 3 C's. And I'm not talking grades. I'm talking about compassion. If your son can walk out of Bellarmine with a sense of compassion, I believe that to be a success. If your son can walk out of Bellarmine with a sense of conscience, I believe that to be a success. And if your son can walk out of Bellarmine with competence, I believe that to be a success. And to help him achieve these goals, there are 4 pillars. These pillars are associated with being a man for and with others, which is a core piece of the Bellarmine mission. The religion classes, Christian service, Kairos and other retreat systems, and the immersion programs. The first one of these are these religious studies classes. We're not here to preach at your sons. We're here to help them examine their own moral compass and to identify what they believe to be right and wrong. We want your sons to graduate from Bellarmine and be prepared to face the variety of situations that he will come in front of. When your son's at college, he doesn't have Mr. Miller in the dean's office there to offer him that compassionate support. He doesn't have myself or Mr. Vargas to come and be a sounding board. And he doesn't have you just down the hall to go and vent his frustrations. He will need to have that skill, that compass that he can develop in the examinations that happen in the religious studies classes. The next pillar is Christian service. This is not to be a checkbox to meet graduation requirements. That's not our goal. Our goal is that your son finds value in what he does, that he finds fulfillment in the work that he performs within his service hours. This year, he's going to be working with economically disadvantaged people, and I think that there's a lot of value in seeing the humanity and the personality in the face of those who suffer economic hardships. And so I hope your son can use these service hours to develop a sense of selflessness, some empathy, and to feel connected. One great example of somebody who lived out these goals is a Bellarmine alumni and University of Oregon alumni, Michael Clay. While he was at Oregon, he continued on his service hours, and he encouraged many of his teammates and brought them with him to the service projects that he did. The third pillar here are these retreats, specifically Kairos. As a sophomore, your son went on the mandatory sophomore leadership overnight retreat, and he took that opportunity to reflect on himself and his goals and his growth opportunities, and to also bond with his homeroom and other peers and faculty. He will have that opportunity again if he decides to sign up for Kairos. And having gone on a very similar retreat through my Jesuit University's campus ministry program, I feel comfortable telling you that it is a must-have experience. It is officially optional, but I am encouraging you to make your son sign up for it because I feel like the value gained is that powerful. This fourth pillar, are the immersions programs. There's a wide variety from local to the continental 48 states in Appalachia or the Mississippi River Delta to overseas in South Africa or even Taiwan. There's a ton of opportunities. I led the immersion trip to the Mississippi River Delta. It seems like forever ago, but I think it was last summer. And it was great because walking around in that area and doing that service, I have read books, I have watched the news, I knew what I was walking into, yet seeing it with my own eyes just changed my heart. We had a guest speaker today as part of our Justice Summit, presenting on the company Wine into Water. And he was speaking about how he came from North Carolina and had never really traveled, but he decided to take a trip to Sudan. And he knew he was going to be challenged, but he felt like that fear, that worry, was an important growth opportunity for him. And I would say the same for your sons. Have them go on an immersion trip with Bellarmine where they can be with their peers, where they can be with their with faculty that they know, and they can have that support while they also face this bold new situation. And those are the 4 pillars. I feel like too often these get lost in the shuffle while we talk about college. Your sons are bells right now. They might be banana slugs, they might be broncos, they might be bears. But when it's all said and done, they were bells and they are bells now. And while they are at Bellarmine, they have myself, they have Mr. Vargas, they have the college counseling department, and they have their amazing teachers here to support them. We want what's best for your sons, just like you do. And so we will do our best to do our jobs, which is to help your son get to a good school and graduate as an amazing human being. And so I want to thank you for your attention. I want to thank you for being here tonight. And I want to introduce Ms. Murphy and Mr. Romano, who are going to be our college counselors presenting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruddell. I'm Katy Murphy, and I'm happy to serve Bellarmine as the Director of College Counseling, along with Joe Romano, one of our college counselors, and you met two of our other college counselors out in the hallway. We're happy to serve you, and this is kind of when we're getting started. How many of you all came to one of the sophomore parent nights? Okay, and look, you're back. It's very exciting. All right. So we've had a lot of questions at open house or back to school night. We've had a lot of questions by email. So this is a lot of information coming at you, and I'm just warning you. There'll be a little fun thing in the middle. But we wanted to make sure we hit all these points. So some of these points may not be exciting for you, but they might be exciting for the person right down the row. But also, this is being screencast. So the record of this PowerPoint along with our commentary will be posted hopefully within the next week, and we'll let you know. So you don't have to take amazing notes or anything, and there will not be a quiz at the end. We wanted to first talk about our mission as Jesuit educators. We are here to help your son through reflection, through discernment, as they grow up, as Mr. Ruddell was just talking about, from a teen to a young man, which is kind of hard to believe, isn't it? Right? In a process that's very complex, but requires careful planning and thoughtful decision making. And we're here to help you and your sons go through it. Bellarmine, one of the reasons that we love working here is that there are 5 of us for 400 students, which is about 80 apiece. And you might think that's too many, but actually we handle it pretty well, except Miss McGarry sometimes we're a little chaotic. She's right over there. But we're good. We asked your sons last week if they had friends at public school and asked them how many college counselors they had, and the answer was 0 to 1. One of the reasons, I hope, that you're enjoying your Bellarmine experience and your son is the service that we provide. However, and this is on the handout that we gave you, this is just one of many aspects of your son's growth in terms of his body, his spirit, and his character. The college planning piece should not take over his life. And we realize that. We stay in our lane, but he's developing his leadership, he's developing spiritual. It's been a long day. He's developing spiritually, he's developing physically and drinking more milk. He's reflecting on ethical behavior. We had an amazing speaker today that Mr. Ruddell was saying, becoming environmentally conscious, intellectual development. But the college piece is just one of it. So we know it's an important piece of the Bellarmine experience, but we don't want it to overtake all of these other things that are happening with him. All right? And you have that graphic in your handout. Our mission as college counselors, or our philosophy, is it's not about admission, it's about fit. We worry and focus on where your son will graduate from, not where he'll be admitted, but where will he graduate? And where will he be supported and challenged throughout his experience? And will that place be financially viable for the family? And will he graduate in 4 years? And that's our goal. So that's what we're focused on. We're not focused on the name of the institution. Your son has to drive this process, and I know that's a scary thought. But your son is growing up every month and every week. Family considerations are important, but your son doing the work that he needs to do will be developing his skills to apply for a job, to apply for a mortgage, to apply for graduate school. So it's important that he be the driver here. And we are starting to talk to you all about becoming consultants, not managers. You've been managers since he was born. And right now it's a time to let him, and I know he's busy, so are you, but it's a time to let him take responsibility for what he's doing. Now, we have some parents that call and say, Miss Murphy, my son's just not into it yet. He's going to be. Trust me, this is my 14th year at Bellarmine. It's amazing how their attitudes about the whole college process change over even 2 months or over the summer. So it will come. Just be patient. And remember, if you have an older daughter, and I was the firstborn older daughter, so my poor brother had to live with this, right? Your daughters are faster on this stuff. Your sons will come along, but they are faster on it. They catch up in their 20s. Okay. So they're not interested now, but they will be interested. And so if you're dragging him to visits and he doesn't want to get out of the car, that's not going to help. You go visit. You leave him at home. It's fine. But he will become interested. We want to help your son. And so we know that you want the best. You love your son. You want him to be successful and happy. You have little control over all this, and this causes you stress. All right, how many people are stressed? You cannot. Okay, all right. We know that. The admission world changes constantly, and this causes you stress. If you've been reading any of the media, I tend to read like once a week. And your family may have expectations, your extended family may have expectations, and that may cause you stress. So what we do in our jobs is we guide and support your son in this process. We provide support for your son by giving him information when he's ready for it. We don't give it all to him at the same time, because you know what that memory's like. It's not long, right? And in fact, that most adolescent male brains right now, when the age of your son, they're on a 3-week window. Something within 3 weeks he's going to remember. After that, no. So not all at once and appropriate to his age. And we're going to support you by providing information in a timely manner. And that's why you're starting to get those emails from me, and make sure that that happens. We're going to tell you about 10 common mistakes. Too much test prep. Sometimes I feel like calling CPS on parents. Classes and grades are much more important than tests. Reasonable test prep is good. An entire summer of test prep is not good. It will not change his scores more than 30 points. So test prep, being ready for it is great, but too much will detract from other things. Visiting colleges you're interested in, but your son is not, or only visiting highly selective colleges. The Harvard bookstore is in Harvard Square. Just go there. You don't need to go to the rest of it, right? So think about how that's rolling. Another mistake, you're being known by the admission officers more than your son. I cannot tell you how well-intended parents, well, I just called all the colleges and they said this. Did you give them your last name? Because that's not a good idea. It's your son's role, it's not your role to get that information. So you can work with him on doing that. That's a skill he needs to develop. Sometimes I have to remind the guys that phones are for calls as well as text. And so they really need to think about getting that information, and you do not want to be known more than your son. Talking too much about college. That may relieve your stress. It's going to increase his dramatically. So one of the things that we suggest is you talk about college 1 hour a week. Pick 1 hour, talk about it then, and then the rest of the time, enjoy your son and all of his other characteristics, or ask him to clean up his room or whatever, right? But you really need to kind of minimize this, because that causes them stress. Parents don't realize sometimes that this happens, and again, we start out with you love your son. Equating college admission with success as a human being. College, your sons are all going to go to a good college. But if he doesn't get into a certain place, that doesn't mean he's lesser than. And sometimes messaging from the grocery store clerk or a well-intended aunt or someone comes through that he has not been successful. And that's the last thing you want to do for him. Number 6, listening to advice from others who are not professionals. I strongly encourage you that if you hear something in the parking lot or at a party or in the grocery store and you're not sure what it is, please call us. One of us would be happy to talk with you about anything that kind of comes up. I met a nice gentleman at STEM fair last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago, and he said, all my friends said my son needs to take, his SATs this year. I'm like, he's a sophomore, calm down, right? Well, but all my friends tell me that. That's great. Just say, Miss Murphy says I'm not supposed to talk about that. So just throw me under the bus. Okay. It's a mistake not to talk to your son about college financing. If you have parameters that you and your family can afford, you have younger children, older children, you will retire someday, etc. Talk to your son about financing and know, in fact, I had a student in my office today, had a big change in financing. He's going to apply to some colleges, but he's aware, because his mom was there, you may not be able to afford that. If you're okay applying to that college, knowing you might not be able to afford that, that's fine. And making sure that he's a part of that conversation. That's not the most fun conversation to ever have, and I am aware of that. If you avoid us, that's a mistake. We send emails, we do programming, we give you postcards, all kinds of things. Our job is to help you help your son. So please know that the messages that are coming to you are we have thought about them pretty specifically and want you to have them. Focusing on rejections and not celebrating admissions. I'm a strong believer. Any kid that gets into college, you take them out to dinner that night, and it might be Dairy Queen, it doesn't matter. Just make sure there's a cherry on the top of that sundae, right? It's important to say congratulations and to let the rejections go. Grieve for 5 minutes and move on, because that just means that might be a good place for graduate school. And then number 10 is sharing your stress. And so we really want you to feel free to call us if you have any questions, but please don't give each other advice. Just please don't do that. This is actually a profession. We have a professional code of ethics, etc. This is a profession. We do know what we're doing, and Joe's about to talk about that in a second. We do know what we're doing. I wouldn't give an architect advice, because I nearly flunked geometry, so that we are not doing that. But we do know what we're doing, and we have the expertise. And then as you move from manager to consultant, we want you to focus on preparing your son for the road and not the road for your child. So I want you to take a deep, deep breath. Deep breath. Because this is all going to turn out okay. I did talk last year at sophomore parent night about Varsity Blues, because it had just broken 2 nights before. But I want to remind you of the lessons there. And I think, People Magazine is making a lot of money off of this. But really, here are the lessons that we've learned, and we've spent a lot of time talking to our colleagues about it. Cheating never pays off. Your son is at a Jesuit Catholic school with codes of ethics, codes of honor, and these people are going to jail. And it's only about 30 students that this whole scandal's about. And it's really parent-driven. And nobody here has done that, and I'm aware of that. And I did say last year we don't do that because we don't. But it's 30 students, and this whole thing has blown up. You need to trust your son's ability and let him know that you trust him. Felicity Huffman said, my daughter looked at me and said, didn't you trust me enough to know that I could get an okay score on my SATs? And her heart broke, right? Don't focus on one college. Poor USC, right? Probably people don't agree with me on that, but their admissions office has been through the ringer. They've had death threats, etc. When it was the athletics department, Singer, and other parents that were doing that. There are other colleges besides USC. There's some great colleges besides USC. Don't focus on one college. And be open to your son as a person who has challenges and talents. And know him as much as you can. And then be realistic about your son's admissibility. We gave you some data on the back of the handout. not to scare you, but just to give you a reality check on some things. And those are colleges that are often on people's minds. But, and we're not going to go into the data, we just wanted you to understand that admissibility is different than it used to be. And we're here, and we've spent a lot of time working on that as professionals. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe to talk about our team.
All right. Thanks, Katie. This was in the back there. Oh, yeah. Nice. I like that. Don't worry. She'll be back. I'm going to talk a little, as Miss Murphy said, about our team. Right? I'm a big... we don't expect you just to trust us. I said this to your kids last week in our class, right? I told them, hey, I don't want you to walk in, sit in this chair, and think, okay, whatever Mr. Romano says, let's go for it. But I'm going to ask you, but I did ask them something, and I'm going to ask you guys the same. Give us a chance to earn your trust. You know, you don't have to come here, like I said, oh, at junior parent night, you're good to go away. But give us a shot. And I like our track record there. Look at that picture. And you've met Mr. Baxter, Miss Hartman, Miss Murphy, and myself, and Miss Connolly's just as much as part of the team, and you'll interact with her. And then we've got our secret weapons, Miss Dunn and Miss Pecanino. And any of you that have crossed the paths with her know that this doesn't go without them. We have 80-plus years of professional experience. Last year, Mr. Schoenberg retired, so we lost 50 of those years. We're back down below 100, but we'll get back up there. Some of us have worked in college admissions and enrollment. We've had some financial aid and athletics experience, and then obviously the college counseling. One of the strengths, I think, of our department is how many campuses we've had our feet on, right? More than 350 campuses across the country. We get at least somewhere between 10 and 20 a year between the five of us. And we're active in the profession. We're part of our national organization, our regional organization, the national and regional parts of the College Board, and some of our personal favorite, the Jesuit Network throughout the U.S. We meet a couple times a year with all the other Jesuit high schools and kind of share best practices, and that's a really great group that's important for us. Your son will receive his college counselor in January. Okay, they're assigned alphabetically, no lottery, no draft picks. So we'll do that in January. And right now, Mr. Ruddell, who you heard from, and Mr. Vargas will still be your son's counselor of record. And in June, that will become us. We kind of do a handoff. We work together while your sons are meeting with their personal counselor around their schedule. So there's kind of a formal handoff that happens, and in June we'll be the counselor of record. And when that sort of the timing with that handoff, we'll be meeting with students and family throughout the spring, February, March, April, May. There'll be times what we call dead periods in there where we're working with seniors. We're not going to have junior meetings, and you'll come to gain appreciation for that next year. But there's a pretty robust time period there. But in order to have those parent meetings or even the individual meeting, your sons will have some homework in the January class. They'll receive things that need to get done before we're going to sit down and meet with them, and that's intentional. So that's one nice thing sometimes. Instead of just riding them, it's just to say, oh, hey, are you working on these assignments because we want to get together with your counselor. And family meetings have to take place before school starts in August. So we want to get that out there to you guys now, especially knowing that we'll be around for some part of the summer, because a lot of times that can slip away, especially during the summer months. And in August, it's going to be, when school starts, it's just not feasible. We're all part of a new platform here called Maya Learning. Any of you, how many people have heard of Naviance before? Right? Good bit of hands. You can forget Naviance. All right? We're using Maya Learning. Okay, you'll be able to access these accounts after our spring parent night, which happens at the end of January. So you'll have your own account. You'll be able to toy around with it and get engaged with that process. A little bit about independent counselors. Okay, the first thing I want to say, without letting my ego jump off this stage, is you're already paying a good chunk of money for your kid to come to Bellarmine, right? I think we can all agree on that. we don't feel like there is a need for you and your son to have a counselor. That said, right, there are some families that go that route. They feel way better. They feel more comfortable. Hey, look, I'm not here to judge, right? But we really encourage you to ask some of the questions that are up there on the screen, right? What professional organizations are they a part of? What's their training and experiences? Schools, colleges, certificate. How many colleges have they been to? Like I mentioned, we feel that that's really important, okay? And can I speak to other families that you've helped? You know, my dad has his PhD, that's post-hole digger, and he never went to school or anything. We're from Philadelphia, and he came out here a couple years ago. I'll never forget it. And he watched us, and he saw Miss Murphy and meet with some people and myself, and he said, man, I'm going to do what you guys are doing. All these kids are going to school anyway. And I was afraid he was going to have a shingle hanging up by the time he left San Jose. There are a lot of people that want, quote unquote, a piece of the action, right? And we get it. It's a great profession. It's wild. It's dynamic. It moves. But make sure you do your homework before you go cutting checks to somebody who's going to try to help you you and your son look at colleges. The most important thing on this slide, the last point, if you do go that route, please make sure your son and please make sure you and please make sure that counselor understands that our deadlines and our processes are still a must. It just doesn't work. I literally can't send anything to the colleges if they miss certain deadlines. Okay, so it's really important to keep that in mind. And a lot of counselors that we've had our students work with, they get that. It's just a matter of putting it out on the table. I mentioned this business, right? Wild, dynamic, it's changing. I stood up in front of your sons last week and I said, oh, this job is trying to show off. And I said, this job, man, this has changed even since August, and it's only October. And some kid in the front row put his hand up and he said, I don't know whose son it was. He said, Mr. Romano, this job's changed since lunch. And I said, what are you talking about? And he pulled up on his Surface, he pulled up an article about the ACT changing. I said, your turn to teach. This stuff's constantly moving, all right? There is no golden ticket. I always am pained when we have speakers. I just was here with the University of Chicago last week or the week before. And at the end, it was parents from all different schools, and at the end, they just started pickling this poor guy, right? Hey, if he has a 3 this and writes this many lines on his essay, what happens? If he gets this score and has a great letter rec and the wind's coming out of the Northeast, is he going to get in, right? And they're just, and you can make us sort of look silly. Some of the things that's really hard for me as a teacher, again, here comes that ego jumping off the stage again, this January class, your kids ask awesome questions. They ask awesome questions. And so many times, our answer is, it depends. I'm picturing myself in that scene. I'm going, what do these people know? Everything, it depends? Right back to my dad, who thinks he can hang the shingle and tell your kid where to go to school, right? It's constantly changing, and all these schools operate differently. So I think it's just really good to keep that in the back of your mind. Otherwise, this can get really, really, really frustrating. A good college for your son, right? Some characteristics up on the board. Obviously, location and environment, okay? Where is he going to be? Close, far, are there mountains, etc. The academics that he's interested in. And that doesn't just mean, oh, the one major. Sometimes we get lost and we look for the best major in, something really, really specific. And what we want to do, where we feel most comfortable, is like, hey, here's this sort of smattering of offers that feel like they're going to be good fits for us, and that we can, and they ask good questions about, hey, can I double major? Can I major in minor? Can I switch around? Those are all things that will surface throughout this process. That's really good to know. What kind of internships, research opportunities, co-ops, career placements? The lingo for that on the college side, if you've been to a college visit or you're going for one, is outcomes, right? If I work for University of Mr. Romano, I come out here and I sit here and I tell you all the awesome things that your kid's going to do when he graduates from here. What are the outcomes, right? And these are the ways that they can make sure that those outcomes happen. So your son really wants to be aware of what's there. Offers activities that he's interested in. Met with a school the other day, 407 clubs on campus. Not just a cheese making club, but a cheese tasting club. Yes, 2 separate clubs. All right? They spend tons of money and time and resources into these activities. Why not find somewhere that has something that you're interested in doing? And we're going to hit that real hard with your kids. You know, if it's something that gets him out of bed in the morning and enhances his Bellarmine experience, man, should he go somewhere that offers that same thing. Crucial. Is it affordable? Right? Miss Murphy mentioned, hey, we at some point have to talk about these finances. We're getting there. Right? In January, we're going to arm your sons with some tools, some ways to talk to you guys about this. Right? It can be a tough talk. But we need to look whether, you know, it makes sense for your family to be able to afford it. Will it both challenge, right? I'm a big scrape your chin guy. I love when your kids go to school and get a couple bumps and bruises. I think it's great for them, right? But will they be supported through it? Or is it going to be, hey, the couple kids that scrape their chin, next guy up, we'll replace those guys? No, we want it to be a place where they're going to be challenged but be supported. And as Miss Murphy, again, she mentioned, is he going to graduate from there? Right? The Bellarmine grad party, the cool themed color cake, the balloons, the sweatshirt, all these things, they're awesome, right? But let's focus on where's he going to graduate? I had a parent come in over the summer and they said, but Mr. Romano, you really have to understand, this is going to be Johnny's best 4 years of his life. Johnny, this needs to be your best 4 years of your life. This is college. And I looked and I said, man, I hope not. What are you going to be, 22? And it's all downhill from there? The class of 2019 applied to 312 different good colleges. They enrolled in 128 different good colleges, okay? And 53% are somewhere other than California, right? We hit the map, and your kids hit the map, and they get out. And they see these different places. So we asked them in October, please just enter this with an open mind. If you end up in the place that your parents dressed you in the bib from when you were 1.5 eating your applesauce, awesome, awesome. But open up and look at some of these other options that you may end up somewhere you've never heard of. All right? And again, those colleges that aren't the name brand, 90% of what you read and what you hear and what you look at in the world of higher ed is about 10% of the colleges. 90% of the coverage to cover 10% of the places. That's how we sell papers and U.S. News and World Report, right? Myths versus realities, okay? Some things that are true, right? The SAT and the ACT are equally acceptable at colleges and universities. There used to be a map where it had the East Coast and the West Coast, and that was all schools where people took the SAT, and on the Midwest, that's where people take the ACT. It was pretty much that simple. That's all blended now. There's all kinds of diagnostics and things like that we'll talk about and think about in order to help your son pick the best version there. And outside of California, right, state in the title, Oregon State, for instance, Arizona State, for instance, is no indication of like, oh, okay, Oregon's more selective or harder, and then when you throw Oregon State in there, okay, it's less selective. We want to make sure that, especially out of state, that there's no sort of tier system, and they're intentional about that. You've got WUI, right? The Western Undergraduate Exchange Program. You'll learn there's a lot of acronyms in this if you haven't already noticed. Okay, it awards students with scholarships, so they pay 150% of in-state tuition at public institutions. Okay, so that can be, not all of them offer this, and each determines eligibility based on GPAs and majors. So there's different factors at each places. But there's an example of sort of the dramatic difference that a school that offers WUI can change the cost, the bottom line. All right, it can be dramatic. And so that's obviously something, if we're worth our weight in salt, that we can say, hey, at least we've asked your son and we've asked your family to go look at some of these options. Before we dive any deeper, let's look what some of the options are that may open up some places that previously wouldn't be on the radar simply because they're out of our affordability range. Couple more things. California public schools are not necessarily less expensive than out-of-state publics and privates, or privates inside or outside of California, right? That's something to think about throughout this process. There's financial aid, we will cover this top to bottom, but we feel like it's really important to sort of dispel some of that myths as you come in. And we won't just say it, oh, hey, there's examples. You'll see some, and where it will be driven home. My son will never get a job, get into grad or med school, will not have a successful career if he attends a liberal arts college, especially one that I've never heard of, okay? There are a lot of places. Duke just visited us today, liberal arts college. People don't realize some of these big names and, brand names. That's what they're saying. And if you're working at a liberal arts college or a liberal arts college or university, right, the idea is it sort of caters to the idea, a lot of reps say this, the college that you're, and they say this to juniors, right, your sons, a lot of you will work in a job fresh out of college. So not that long from now, 6 years, you'll work in a job that right now does not exist. Doesn't even exist. So when you're in the liberal arts and they're saying, all right, bring it. You want us to prepare kids for something that's not out there? Bring it. Because we're going to teach them how to write and talk, or communicate and research. That's another misconception. Oh, I don't hope my son doesn't go to liberal arts. I just think it's so important that he does research. Duke does research. And I just keep using them because they were here after school today. But there's countless examples. This is a really small slide that we know you can't read, to basically just show you that's Bowdoin, right? That's a liberal arts college, and each one of those lines is probably about 13 or 14 different jobs, right? There's work out there for your sons that go on and graduate from schools that are 1,000, 1,200, 1,500, 2,200 enrolled at their school, and lots of resources concentrate on a small number of students. So we ask that you keep that in mind. Cool article here from the Times. They talk about in the salary race, right? Engineers get off to the best start. They're the rabbit, right? First 3 years out of school, first year out of school, generally the engineers are the rabbits in the race. But the English majors, and shown in this article, right? They're the tortoise, right? It doesn't take right away. They're maybe living in the if they're in San Francisco, they're probably in a closet. But if they're in somewhere else, they're probably not in the most luxurious first place right out of college. And but over time and over opportunities that they can get with those different schools, it's really interesting to see what backgrounds people who are out there, with some really successful careers are doing. For those of you Saturday Night Live fans out there, they're not going to end up in a van down by the river, okay? LinkedIn is using this a lot, right? These outcomes, is my kid going to be the only guy that walks through the airport and with his sweatshirt on and nobody knows what that school is? It's a good talk point, by the way, right? But they're showing you, right? Here's the Bay Area, right from us. Look at all these people from DePaul University, way out in Chicago, right, that are right here in the Bay Area. Almost as many as some of these other areas, right, of big cities. And the number of jobs that are working in different sectors, and even in LinkedIn, because it's so specific, some specific places. So it's really, really important, and we think, again, to alleviate some of that stress, to keep that in mind, that you're not pulling off job opportunities at 18. We've got some updates, right? I mentioned that guy in our class that said, oh, hey, Mr. Romano, you're wrong. It's changed since lunch, right? This is what he was referencing, okay? Some things, they change constantly, right? SAT and ACT, Coke and Pepsi, right? The essay's optional. The essay's at the end. And the UCs and others require this quote-unquote optional essay that happens at the end. So it's real tempting to get in, try to sell mom and dad on, get me out of this essay, right? It's at the end. We really, in almost all cases, recommend, hey, give it a shot. Let's see what happens. But we will work with your student individually on what we think is best and what he's feeling is best testing-wise. Getting the Halloween spirit here, okay? College admission testing. This is really hard not to let the test prep companies scare you. It's hard, right? A big piece of this industry, whether you're in admissions, whether you're in test prep, independent counseling, all different parts of it is capitalizing on fear, right? Why? Because that's the quickest thing that's going to get you off your wallet, okay? So work with us. As Ms. Murphy said, don't be afraid to ask some of those things. Hey, this is something around the test prep company. Is this a realistic deal? Have you had students work with this type of thing? Again, she mentioned that 30-point jump. There's not a lot of, that's not worth a huge investment, right? For some people, they jump up way more. That's why this is an average, right? But that's usually based on prep level and effort level and different things that we can talk on one-on-one. The ACT is not easier. A lot of folks think that, right? They're just different. They work in different ways, and we'll talk about that. And timing is important. None of us are going to have, none of your sons just blanketly aren't going to have the same testing plan. Some play sports, some are in the play, some do this, some do that, right? And that's something that'll come out of that January class. We call it a testing plan. That'll be one of those assignments. When are you taking what? And oh, by the way, don't just tell us that. You will bring in your test registration, and that way you as parents and us as counselors can know when and what your son is doing as far as the standardized testing. And then we have a big night here, not too far off on November 13th about college testing. That's one that if you can make it, that's another must-see. I don't know if it'll be a sold-out crowd like this, but it should be pretty popular because it's so timely for you guys. All that said, right, there's different schools. There's over 800 four-year colleges that don't require any kind of standardized test. I mentioned U of Chicago, George Washington University is one of those, right? And this fairtest.org website will just list these schools out. So it is important to know that they're out there. When your kid's banging his head against the wall at home around standardized tests, you know, it's amazing to me the scores that your sons come into my office and cry about. It's amazing to me. I'm like, man, I'd swap that. It doesn't matter now. It's irrelevant. But what I wouldn't have done for that score, right? And I think the perspective that you can bring to that as parents can really, really, really help your son. And grades are always going to be more important than the tests, right? There's a lot of folks that argue that the tests don't measure much as far as college success. There's a lot of great studies and data out there that can actually show that, okay? But regardless, even the schools that think that that's the really important barometer, the one that they're going to have above that are the grades. Just measures way more things, especially relative to students applying out of our school at those many institutions to which they apply. We think this is important. We're going to help with info on college financing. I think this is like the fourth time we've mentioned financing tonight, right? We don't ever want to be flippant about financing. We don't ever want to be, the group saying, oh, well, you found a way to get your kid to Bellarmine, so find a way to get them to college. We hear that, believe it or not, at certain schools. That's not our MO, right? So we think it's good to just sort of get it out there. It's a great experience for your sons to have talks that they've probably never had around that. But we're going to help. And we're not going to help just by, oh, hey, let's sit around and kumbaya and talk about it. We're going to give you some tools. We're going to have an event in March, planning ahead to pay for college. And Senior Financial Aid Night will be in September. And we'll also have screencasts for some of this stuff for the March event, where you'll be able to just sit at home in your PJs and watch exhilarating information around financial aid and paying for college. Okay, so keep that in mind. The Bellarmine process, okay, everything has a purpose, and we're here to help every step of the way. So Miss Murphy's going to come out. I told you I promised she'd come back out, so here we go.
We just think you'd like both of our voices. Thanks. We'll go back and forth. So we got a lot of questions at Back to School Night about how does this work, and we really look at it in these sections. And some students are a little ahead of this, some students are a little behind this, but they explore, they define, they shape their list, they apply, they decide. And we buy the sweatshirt on May 2021, sorry. I should have changed that. Not next year. They're not leaving yet, sorry. But let's talk about the junior year. So this year, we spend 8 days in the classroom with your sons. We just spent 2 days this last week going over some things. We have these information nights for you. We will have individual and family meetings. And as Mr. Romano said, these meetings are really important because we want to know what the whole family's thinking about. But your son is present at those meetings. It's important that he be there. We are sponsoring some college tours. We have a case studies program, special topic presentations, and then some college fairs. This is what we talked about last week with your son, is not the name of the college, but the characteristics. What's his best learning environment? Does he learn best in a discussion, a seminar, in a lecture hall? How does that work? What's his best campus environment and setting? And 10 days of football games, we need to go a little farther than that. Location and proximity to home. We, as Mr. Romano said, the major, we want to have a wider view of their majors because we went to the UC conference and every single UC director of admissions say, please have your students look beyond the obvious. I think 30% of the students who applied to UC Riverside applied in 10 majors. So there's a lot of opportunities out there for them, and research and internships. What they like doing, they are not going to leave that behind. They need to leave their dogs behind, sorry. And then financing and scholarships. So in the classroom, we talked about tools for effective searches. We focused on characteristics and the importance of their grades this semester. In January, we're going to get more specific about vocabulary, testing strategy, the types of colleges, and the processes for applying, a little bit more about aid and scholarships, but all through January, and you'll have a copy of the syllabus, we're going to give your son assignments for discernment, to have them continue thinking about what it is they want, what's the best environment for them. So we did give your son a copy of his transcript, and he got a bird's eye view of himself, because a lot of people look at the semester grades and think that those are the grades that are happening. See his trends. It's not too late to make a change. College admissions, both Mr. Romano and I worked on college admission staffs, like to see upward trajectories, not downward trajectories, so we talked about that. We also talked about how the junior year at Bellarmine is probably the most difficult year he's going to have in any level of education. We know that. But also, if there was ever a time to put the pedal to the metal, it's this year, because colleges really look at the junior year and how they do. And that's a message we gave them, and we told them we were going to tell you that too, so we're being transparent. But also to focus on what they can control and not worry about what they can't control. I'm going to talk a little bit about grades, which is everyone's favorite topic because we already did testing, so we're moving on. But your son's record is maintained by Mr. Janke, the registrar. It does not, our Bellarmine transcript does not include classes from other colleges or other high schools. We attach those when we send transcripts to colleges for admission, but we don't include those grades or those courses on our transcript. And the transcript is updated every semester. Quarter grades are not posted officially. If your son has taken courses elsewhere, we need to have those transcripts sent, and we will take care of sending them on to support his application. On your son's transcript, and we are sorry that we ran out of time today. If those of you who got a transcript, happy to have you have a view of that. But if you need a copy of your son's transcript, we'll give that to you on your way out. But the weighted Bellarmine grade point average, and part of this is that students have many grade point averages. They don't just have one. And so the weighted GPA is only the courses that don't have an N beside it on his transcript. Pluses and minuses don't count. So a B plus is not as good as an A minus. And for every course that's an honors course or an AP course, he gets 1 extra point each semester. His academic GPA doesn't have the weighted aspect to it, but it's only the classes without N's beside the title. And his total GPA is every class he's taken. So that's already 3 grade point averages that he has. People ask us about class rank. Bellarmine does not rank ever. There's not even a class rank computed. So there's no access to information, secret information, or anything like that. Colleges are just fine with that. They know that we don't rank. More and more high schools don't rank. And one of the reasons is because we have such a large school and there's so many opportunities here, we want students to stretch themselves appropriately. This practice supports our students in applying to college, so we don't want you to worry about it, but there is no class rank. And then the UC-CSU GPA, because they're special, they have their own GPA. So they look at 10th and 11th grade only. They weight only junior level classes or AP classes, and pluses and minuses don't count. But in the evaluation of UC and CSU admission, they're also looking at the rigor of the curriculum as well. So we want you not to worry about that. We know that, and the UC CSU requirements are Bellarmine's graduation requirements. It is up to your son to earn the grades to do that, but our curriculum is set to meet those needs. And then at other colleges, it depends, as Mr. Romano said. So most count 9th through 12th, some don't count 9th. Some take the highest GPA that's reported on the Bellarmine transcript. They just take it off the transcript. Some look at religious studies courses, some do not, and that includes Santa Clara. Most recalculate the GPAs, and I spent years doing that. One of the reasons my glasses are this thick. And they have their own rules about that, whether they count preliminary computer science, whether they weight honors courses with a half a point or AP courses with a point. It really depends on how the college does it itself. Most do not include pluses and minuses, some do. And they will include courses taken elsewhere in their review. So they'll do that. That's a good question to ask at a college fair or a time that you're meeting on a campus with an admission officer, is how do they calculate their own GPA? So your son has a bunch already. He'll have a GPA for every college that he goes to. So we kind of look at the minimum. We tell students to report their weighted GPA whenever they're asked, and that's totally fine. But we wanted to give you that experience. So before we get to the next part, Mr. Baxter or Miss Hartman? Okay. Mr. Romano is going to take you through a little fun exercise.
You guys can evaluate the fun factor. But what we're going to do here, we've got, it's not on yet. We've got 6 colleges. Okay, so we're going to ask somebody to read about each one of them. We're going to show you a couple pictures, and then we're going to see at the end, like I said, there's 6. You might have to take some mental notes or figure out where to go. And we're going to see how many you've got. The record is 5. The most I've ever seen a junior class do was 5. So we will tell your sons how well you did when we meet them in January. So don't give them the answer if you don't want them to beat you guys. And we'll see how well we do at the end of this. So, Mr. Baxter, if you could see if anybody is willing to read. I know it's tough to see for some of that. If anyone's willing to read that one out loud.
You wouldn't believe it, the kids fight over this one. Let me read. I'm just going to pick people.
Oh.
1,800 undergraduates with Division I athletics, ideal for a Bell student who is interested in learning for learning's sake and athletic excitement. Known as the Dartmouth of the South, located in a small college town, generous with financial aid, no loans for needy students, Honor Code is important here with outstanding interdisciplinary, pre-professional, and international programs within a liberal arts curriculum. Largest areas of studies, biology, psychology, poli-sci, and theater. Eating clubs resemble fraternities.
Thank you. And what we'll do in the class, we won't do it tonight so that we can get you home by my bedtime, but what we'll do is we'll go through some of that lingo, right? You see the words that are underlined, and we use these over the course of these 6 colleges to make sure that they go out of there knowing what we're talking about with this. And then we share a couple of pictures. Sometimes guys recognize the buildings, typically not. So that's College 1. If you think you know what that is, file it away, and you'll get a chance to show off later. College 2. Where's Mr. Baxter? What can we do here?
Somebody over here?
Come on, don't all jump at once.
College number 2. With just over 16,000 undergraduates and 5,000 graduate students, this beautiful traditional campus is located in a major city. It has long been known for their high-quality pre-professional and co-op programs. All students participate in freshman seminar as well as senior capstone experience. Offers the entire range of academics, including engineering, architecture, business, the arts, computer science, and criminology. Offers generous merit scholarships. D1 athletics are central to the school spirit, with hockey being their big draw.
Thank you. That's a radio voice. Better than a radio face, I suppose. Couple of pictures. Here we go with college number 3.
With just over 5,000 undergraduates and 3,300 graduate students, School Number 3 offers an open curriculum with no general education requirements and limited distribution requirements. A third of the students double major. Freshman seminar courses teach research methods, and 75% of undergrads are involved in research. 90% complete an internship before graduation. Engineering, music, and the sciences are exceptionally strong here, with a conservatory and medical school on campus. Allows graduates to take a 5th year free. Located in a medium-sized city with the most social life taking place on campus.
Thank you. All right, halfway there. Here comes college number 4.
Enrolls 2,550 undergrads with just over 4,000 total students, located about 2 hours drive from LA, amid mountains on a beautiful campus with an East Coast feel. 10% of students participate in a program where they design their own course of study. No majors, core requirements, or grades. Offers traditional liberal arts, but pre-professional fields like business are among their most popular majors. 441 academic calendar has students take a single intensive course each May. Campus community invested in their nationally ranked D3 athletic programs with an unusually cool student cheer. Ask your tour guide.
Thank you. Here's the most popular species mascot in the world. So this will be a small hint. Okay. College number 5.
Oh. I volunteered. 5,000 undergraduate students with just over 8,000 total students, with over 50% of students from our out of state, located on the outskirts of a major city. Business, political science, and international affairs and communications are big. Also, specialization in hotel, restaurant, and tourism management, one of the few in the country. All core courses must be taught by senior faculty members. 5-year master's programs available in business, law, and international studies. D1 athletics, where winter sports rule, as mountain resorts are a short hour away.
You can get good at telling different buildings apart from each other if you do this long enough. All right, who's going to take us home here?
Anybody, please. Thank you so much.
Located in a beautiful college town, offering their 20,000 total students easy access to both outdoor activities and a major city, especially strong in pre-professional programs including business, engineering, and biological sciences. World-class research facilities where undergrads have access include a coastal marine biology center, school-owned forestry, food science lab, wave research lab, and more. Honors College experience allows for small class sizes and ability to work closely with professors. D1 athletics are the center of school spirit, especially when they play their in-state rival. Some merit scholarships available.
Thank you. All right, so here we go. So Mr. Baxter, I think, has some prizes here for anyone that's lucky enough to get one of these. And I'll go with just the first hand I see. College 1. I saw one all the way in the back there. What was it? Wow, ding, 1 for 1. Davidson College, 1 for 1. Home of Steph. You guys got a step ahead of me. Steph Curry fans over there. I like the Sixers. College 2. So there was our description. Sorry, who did I see a hand? I heard an answer. I didn't see the hand. How about over here? Northeastern. Do we have a winner? We've got a winner. There's our pictures. I guess picture of Beantown gave it away there. College number 3. Any guesses? Oh, I'll go here, then here. What was it? Not Tufts, but good guess. I said here. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. That's impressive. I think we're 3 for 3 here. Wait till your kids get a load of this. College number 4. Okay, there's our description again. I'll give you a hint. That's not Handsome Dan. How about it? Who knows College 4? I got a hand straight in the back again. That's correct. I don't know where the answer came from, but I heard it back here. Honesty policy back there, Mr. Baxter. University of Redlands. College number 5. Description. Couple of pictures. Who's got it? I'm going to look over here. Yeah, right here. Quick hand. Not Colorado, but getting warmer. Not Boulder, getting warmer. Or staying the same, I guess I should say. Where are we? All the way in the back. Not Colorado College. Finally, we stumped somebody. How about right here? Got it. Ding, ding, ding. Process of elimination, I guess. And lastly, who's got, quick hand there. Which one? There we go, the Beavers. Man, you guys were good. Don't think we're not going to be bragging on you come January. Your sons know they have a tall order. So great job with that. And one of the reasons we like doing that is partly to kind of so you don't have to hear me so much, and we can hear each other, but also because, again, we want to make it clear that there's a lot of schools, there's a lot of great places that will fit your son. It's not about finding one place and one place only. These are all places that we just want to start big up top thinking about. We've got some tools that you'll be hearing about, right? Maya Learning, I mentioned that earlier. That's kind of the new Naviance. That's where if you've been familiar, all those hands that went up, there's a search engine on there. We'll be using that. The College Board has a great search engine called Big Future. We use that a lot. The Fisk Guide, okay, that's a big, huge, it's about as big as your son's biology books when they had them. They're huge and thick. We all have them in our offices. Some of the guys love them because there's quotes from kids, other students at those schools. So those are a big hit, the Fisk Guide. And then I saved the best for last. We really are proud. This was Miss Murphy's brainchild a couple years ago, and we've opened up what's called the BCP College Notebook, and it's available on OneNote. Your sons can access it, and they can show it to you. You're not going to have your own OneNote account, but we do encourage you to talk with them about it. It's notes from any of those 350 plus colleges that we've been to. So when we go and we visit, we're taking a lot of notes. When they come to us, I want to say there was about 164 colleges that visited us this year. We'll definitely be there by next month. They come before school at lunch. Many of your and after school, many of your sons have been to those. But we take notes at those, and they're all there right in this notebook for your son to access. So we find that really helpful. A lot of lingo going to come out of our January class. A little bit of lingo came in October, came this past week, but a lot of lingo is going to come in January. We pick and choose that lingo that we want to share with you tonight, and we pick this one because this is actually one that your son can start acting on now. And we call this, and they call this, the college's demonstrated interest. To some colleges, they don't care, right? Great. You want to come here, cool, send your application. Some care so much that it's actually part of the measurables of whether they're going to admit a student or not. They track that, okay? So I tell your sons it's like dating, right? If you don't reach out, you're not going to get the date, right? And if you don't respond, you're certainly not going to. It's not going to be. You're not going to get a second date. So we want your sons to sort of proactively express interest, but instead of having them, oh, hey, just go express interest, we use some tangibles, right? We had guys put their hands up in our October class and said, how many of you have been to a college visit? And some put their hands up. We said, great job. Those of you that haven't, get there. And we gave them a list of all those schools that are outstanding, that are still coming to Bellarmine, but haven't been here yet. That's a gift, guys. There's not a lot of schools that have that many colleges visiting like us. We were just at the national conference. I think 7,000 to 8,000 people at that conference. And I'm not, if you can't tell, I'm not afraid to go out and meet people and talk to people and answer a lot of questions. And not a wallflower, so to speak. I asked, right, how many people are coming? I didn't find a big number like ours, even at some of the schools that you would think. It is a real gift for us. So really, if you can encourage your sons to come to those, that would be a good move. Visiting the college, right? This is a one step higher, right? That one they have to kind of bring their lunch, right? Some of these places, if they're going to go visit the college, jump on a plane, and that's time and money, and we get that, right? So it's okay that that's sort of a smaller number. In fact, it should be. But you're definitely going to want to, your son's definitely going to want to have his feet on on the campuses at some of these places. Asking for information through the website, right? I call this, when I work with your sons, I call this low-hanging fruit. Not that tough to do. They do it every day. Look it on the website. Hey, I saw this or I saw that. Click here really big if you want more information from this school. And the fallout, what's the worst that can happen? They're going to get pickled with email. That's the worst thing that happens. So you get a couple emails, you don't like it, go to the bottom, unsubscribe, and I guess that's the equivalent of swiping left if I'm going to stick with the dating analogy. Unsubscribe. Attending a local info session and a reception. That one comes immediately following the asking for information for a reason. That's how they find out. You express your interest. How else are they going to know to invite your son to the event at the Santa Clara Convention Center or wherever it is? Okay? And then talking to the admission officer at a college or a fair. I always get your sons with this one. How many of you have been told that there's no such thing as a stupid question? I mean, anyone ever been told that? Right? That's not true. Okay? There are times, right, to go up to a college rep, to wait in a line of 22 kids standing there with your parents to talk to some college rep. Wait, go, to ask them how many students attend that school. Stupid's too strong, dumb's too strong, right? But it's not a good use of your time. Right? They could find that on their phone before they get to the front of that line, right? So you want to think about and sort of get a sense of those things that are important to you. And if size is important, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I saw this or I saw that. But those are the kind of questions that these folks are looking to hear. Okay? So that demonstrated interest piece is really important. Okay? And that's why we bring it up tonight. Because there are still colleges coming. There are still ways to do that versus waiting until April and going, oh man, I haven't done any of that. Okay? Quick word on athletic recruitment. This is for the guys that are both ways, right? One is if you're planning on playing, and you really want to go there. You know, sometimes we talk about them, hey, you can look and learn a lot about the NCAA at places that just offer sports and you can go and watch. But if your son's thinking about playing, right, one of the ways I say it is if they're one of those athletes where the coach is sending a private plane and, you know, all these red carpet type things. It was cool. Mr. Ruddell mentioned Michael Clay, who was here a few years ago. I watched that from my office. I watched Oregon's plane fly in. This is a true story. Fly in, land in San Jose, police escorts to campus. They marched into his class, guys dressed like this, not quite as nice, but still nice, and marched him out of class and asked him to sign this piece of paper, and confetti came out. I mean, that's happened once in my 13 years here. And that was, by the way, the same year that 2 other kids went and played at Stanford, and they got a pat on the back. All right, so just keep in mind, and if your son's one of those guys where that's in his future, he probably knows that already. Okay, so for the rest of us, make sure, and you can help us there, encouraging your son to reach out. Hey, Coach so-and-so, this is what I know, this is what I would like to know, right? And now is a good time to start doing that. And of course, like I said earlier, if they contact your son, if they're contacted by a coach, it's great to answer that. Important to answer that, and even if it's as simple as, hey, thanks for the note, I'm not interested. And there's because that's the right thing to do way to look at it, but there's also these coaches, they talk, especially at the D3 level and in the same league. They're all talking about the same kids. So sometimes that's in their best interest to say, hey, I'm not going to school A, so that way when they share that with school B, then school B's next phone call is your kid. And then we'll have them, and we can do this in January, check out the NCAA Eligibility Center, essentially a clearinghouse to make sure that they are eligible to play at the next level. I think the most important piece of information on this slide is that this is a different animal. Applying to the military academies is a totally different process. We're getting letters from elected officials. It's way, way earlier. You'll see there, right? This process is going to be going in August, full bore, if your son's looking seriously at a military academy. Okay, so it's something that if this piques his interest and your family's interest, this is something that you're going to want to be talking about pretty quickly here in the new year. And there's a lot of summer camp and summer opportunities that happen, and that's why that's important. Speaking of demonstrated interest, right? Another way to do that is to go to these different programs. So here's a real date specific Santa Clara lunch. Happens on January 7th. I think that's our first day back at school. So shouldn't be one that our guys forget. It's open only to Bellarmine juniors. So it's a really sort of specific event. And registration's going to open on the 3rd. And this is a slide from our class, so we're telling your sons to watch their email. This will fill up fast, okay? And there's only 60 that can fit. And we told them this, and this is another ask of you, if you could help us. If they sign up, please, 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 please make sure that they go. It's rough on us because it's a couple phone calls, but it's a really bad look for them at a school where they can easily look and track that type of information. And because they know that we're telling your sons, hey, it's only room for 60 people, it is poor form to sign up and not go. So look at the calendar, make sure there's nothing else taking up that time. Family campus visits, right? Can these start now? Again, it depends. If your son's ready to kind of go cruise around the campus or check that out, and in our class, a lot of them, we had them go right online, sign up for a visit now, somewhere close. We told them to talk to you about helping them get there. But why? We want to expose your son and be sure that your son's exposed to different options. A lot of times they'll go, man, this place, it just doesn't feel right, right? It doesn't, better now than later, okay? And also, even at those schools that aren't going to be good fits, there's oftentimes characteristics that will jump out, and they can find those same options other places. We want to schedule in advance. I mentioned that. We had them go on their phones in class or on the computer. These are things that you're going to want. It's all online. These colleges want you and them on their campus. So they're out there. Big lights, big buttons to click on websites to sign up for tours and info sessions. We're going to cover this a lot more in January. Big Future, that website that I mentioned, that search engine that I mentioned, has a zip code and a geography filter that some of our guys find useful. Don't just go places that you already know about. You know, we're going to tell your son, hey, it's okay to go to a couple places that maybe you've only clicked a few buttons online for, and then it's exciting enough to pique your interest. And it's okay to see, reach, and like. In fact, we encourage it, right, to see those schools that are going to be really, really unlikely that will be admitted, right? 12%, 9%, whatever that is, versus a place that is maybe more likely. 30%, 40%, 50%, whatever those numbers are. It's nice to sometimes see those and realize firsthand, hey, this place that I probably won't get into has things that I really love, but so does this school that I have a much better chance of gaining admission. And just like we said, we're going to flip-flop back around. Ms. Murphy can take us home. We're getting close, guys. Thank you for, I know this is a lot.
So in the summer, we want students to we will give them lists when we meet with them and refine them when we meet with families, but students to do the research and to visit colleges and reflect on what they're doing. But also in the summer, we run application essay workshops, a couple of list development workshops, and we expect our students to do two significant activities: a job, practicing a sport is one, traveling someplace they've never been, reading a set of books, watching Little Brothers or Sisters, an internship, etc. So we will expect them to do two. We will get the list down to 12 to 15 in August or September and meet with us. But again, we can't have family meetings after school starts. So please do take advantage of family meeting times in the summer and in May and April. Senior orientation is one of our prime programs, and that's where we talk about the logistics of applying to college. And we have the most up-to-date information there. The seniors must come to that event. Parents, we love parents to come. About 350 parents come, so it's great. You wouldn't be the only ones. But every senior must come to this event. And we talk about the logistics, because we could talk about the logistics now, but you'll forget it, your sons will forget it, and things will change. In the fall, from September to November, we're working, and this is what we're doing right now, final lists that students will ask for teacher recommendations in September. The college counselors will help with essay topics and brainstorming. We will also review. We will have a UC-CSU application workshop and a financial aid evening in September. In the spring, we work on deciding, and that is when we don't jump ahead and have students look at all of their admission decisions by the end of March. And if you need our assistance at that time, we set aside a couple of weeks in April to meet with seniors and their parents to review financial aid awards, to review offers of admission, etc. And that's when there's some receptions in the area, big balloon events every place, and students can do that. And literally May 1st is Buy the Sweatshirt Day, okay? And we do a little shredding and ice that day. Let's talk about some upcoming events. You got a handout on 2 college tours. These are for sophomores and juniors. One is over the February break to Southern California, and this is kind of an orientation tour to big schools, small schools, urban schools, suburban schools, etc. There's an information night on October 23rd in Andrade. Feel free to come to that. And then there's another one over spring break, and actually Mr. Romano will be going on the fall break one, and I'll be going on the spring break one to the upper Midwest, all the way from University of Wisconsin through Indiana, all the way up in Illinois, all the way up into Michigan. And so you got a handout on those, and if you're interested in those, you'll want to come to the information session or go on the website that's listed there. We're happy that you all are here tonight. That we've also mentioned College Admission Testing Night, which is on November 13th. We will have the Dean of Admission at Boston College come for the spring night, which will be very different from this one. I'm answering a question before you guys email me with this one. It will be very different from this one and talk about parents in the process. We believe that'll be January 22nd, but we're trying to get on his schedule. So I'll get that date out to you as soon as possible, and you'll learn about your own Maya accounts. One of the signature programs in the Bay Area is the Case Studies program, which encourages juniors and their parents to come to learn about the application process by reviewing a sample set of applications to a fictional college. It will be April 23rd at Bellarmine. It rotates between Mitty, St. Francis, and Bellarmine every 2 years. We host it. It's a mock admission exercise. We only have room for 40% of the juniors plus one parent, and the registration information will be mailed home in March. We encourage your students to come, especially if they're thinking about liberal arts and sciences and selected private institutions, because we'll have about 95 college admission officers here that evening from all types of schools. There'll be a set of college fairs in April and May, and we'll get those dates out to you as soon as possible. Your sons will be required to go to either the case studies or a college fair. I ask them to give us 4 hours after we're finished with our January class, so they'll have to go to one or the other, and we'll give them those dates in January, and you'll have those dates ahead of time. So, we want you to breathe. We've just thrown a whole bunch of things at you. These are questions in response to questions we've been getting. But we're here to help you, and we actually do know what we're talking about. Please do try to trust us at the beginning. We'll earn your trust, and we will work well together. You can help us help your son by not trying to fit your son into a specific college, but actually focus on the colleges that fit your son. And we think that that's a really important distinction. But also to the point, you are on track, you are not behind. Anybody worried about being behind? A little bit, right? You're not behind. We have a step-by-step process. We'll be in communication with you, and we think that that's very important. Take time, talk about college only 1 hour a week. Take time to enjoy your son, because he's not going to be around tremendously the way he is now in the next couple of years. So let's enjoy your son as much as possible, as long as he's not driving you crazy, and talk about college just a little bit, but we'll get to a time where that is more important. We want to thank you for coming tonight. We're looking forward to our work together. If you did not get a transcript and you'd like one, Mr. Baxter and Ms. Hartman are out there. Thanks so much for coming.